If you've been coached well, you probably had that person say to you at some point something that you didn't want to hear but you knew to be true. And when you followed through on their advice, on their counsel, on that nugget of wisdom they gave you, whether from their own experience or their understanding of you in the world, the outcome that you hoped for was attained by means of which you wouldn't have gotten to maybe as quickly without them. And that's all right. It's why we pay coaches. It's why we have for millennia had mentors and teachers, because we don't know everything. Understanding that we don't know everything is a huge step to becoming better at something. And one of the moments that sticks with me was in third year of my undergraduate degree, where I was far more pretentious than I am now, I promise you. It was either Hamish Mattison or Adam Piet, two lecturers, professors that I really looked up to. One of them said that I shouldn't write a dissertation, and in front of the seminar said, Jack, you shouldn't write a thesis because if you did, it would open with the line, English literature is. And I was winded and I was wounded, but I wasn't wound up because he was completely right. Unlike my classmates, I didn't have a specialism. I didn't have a focus or a niche that I'd shown an interest in or a burgeoning understanding of. If I'd chosen to write a thesis for my undergrad, I don't think I would have got a 2-1 in my degree overall, or I would have struggled to. I needed somebody to say that. I had a lot of support from the faculty, and in Sheffield was building support as my own writer, poet, author, character, person in the city. I was part of a poetry collective that was making moves and showing up at literary festivals and running open mic nights and publishing work from authors across the world. It was fun, it was exciting, it was huge in breadth and scope and potential. What it wasn't was niche though. And had I focused on one thing, I don't think I would have enjoyed everything else. English literature is. I wasn't the guy to write the essay at that point in time. And instead I did a creative writing module and got a first in it, which absolutely helped my average out for the degree. Now, I've not used English literature directly in anything. You know, when you get your bachelor's, nobody looks at your A-levels. When you get a master's, nobody looks at your bachelor's, it seems to be. And actually, once you have your first job, nobody's really looking at what you studied at all. It's all about the experience that you've gained. But that comment stuck with me. It was realistic. It was grounded in somebody else's understanding of me in the world based on their experience. And it was proven right in a way that I'm eternally grateful for. I'm in a moment now where, again, I feel like I'm moving between things. So where I was encouraged to not go too down a path, that has come up again. I'm currently online coaching full-time. I'm currently back in Sheffield. I have been a PT. I've been an SEO account director. I have been a travel writer. I've lived in London and Berlin and almost moved out to Sydney. Last year, I gave up the flat of my dreams to go and travel around Southeast Asia. I had a backpack, 24 litres, and in that was this laptop and my headphones and enough clothes to get around a subcontinent. Actually too many clothes, I overpacked. I took a pair of formal trousers that I didn't wear once. And being in so many places and traveling and being in between so many places, I felt things that I haven't experienced before. I had ideas that I hadn't had before. And the sense of pain and growth and everything that happened was huge. I wouldn't change any of it, but none of it went in the direction that I naively perhaps had hoped for. If I could show on the other side of the world that, you know, I was living out of a rucksack and I was maintaining my fitness and I had a physique that people would aspire towards and maybe had a healthy glow. I've never tanned. That should have been a red flag, a sunburned red flag if ever there was one. That maybe business would drastically improve from the position that it was in. The truth was it didn't. It ticked. That was good. A lot of people would hope that their business would tick over. So I'm not complaining about that. But it was a sense of stasis while moving and maybe not knowing if it was sustainable and worrying about what would happen if I stopped. And coming back to the UK at the start of this year and It's obviously cold and I don't have that flat to go back to. And the clients who have had an incredible 2024 with me have achieved their goals. They don't need the coach anymore. They've had their realizations. They've had their English literature is moments and then gone in a direction that makes sense to them. What happens next? Where am I in all of this? So I was living in North Yorkshire for a little bit. You know, I was between family homes. And for the past month, I've been on a motorbike, which, I didn't know how to drive at the start of the year, but within 5 weeks, I got my license for, and within another week, bought it outright. And from there, drove to Birmingham, ran my first half marathon, which I've been training for, and then was in London for 2-3 weeks, and then was in Barcelona and Palma just yesterday, and now Sheffield once more. I found myself now not scared, perhaps excited, wondering what comes next. And I want to document it in a way that is ideally helpful for other people as it is for me to understand the thoughts, the feelings, the experiences that I'm going through. The theme, the idea that ties a lot of this up is security versus agency. I've given up an amount of security, job security, relationship security. You know, a lot of my friends have worked towards like a sense of tenure. I have mates who are working up the academic ladders. I have mates who are managers or directors. I've got friends who are in the civil service. You know, these are kind of fixed positions that, provided their businesses still function, they're set, aren't they? They've got their pensions, they've got their salaries. Monday to Friday, they know where they're going to be. They have traded their time for money and for security. And fair play to them. A lot of them are happy with what they're doing, and that's class. A lot of my friends are getting married now. Some of them are having kids. They're really doubling down on where they are. They're laying roots. And with roots come growth, come new opportunities. Last year, for the first time in maybe a decade, I was in Sheffield and I had not just colleagues, but friends. I had people round to my flat. I was able to host. We were out in the peaks on walks, or running around Hillsborough Park, or going to the gym together, or having casino nights at respective friends' houses in a way that I just hadn't had since university. And when I went travelling again, all right, it's fairly easy to meet people, but it's really difficult to have friends in a proper, meaningful, connected way. I'm hoping to host again, but from a position and a place that I didn't expect to be in this time last year. I think maybe something that I've got to accept is that when I left because there was a sense of something missing and a sense of I need to complete this. When I was 21, 22, I backpacked around Australia and was supposed to go to Southeast Asia because that's what people did who were backpacking like me. But I didn't get to do that. I ended up going to Berlin because there's a travel writing opportunity. And that sounded amazing, and a lot of it was. But I finished that with yellow hair and massive depression. And out of that was a realization that I wasn't well, that I wasn't fit, that things weren't going the way that I hoped. There's an element of circularity to the feeling that I've got at the moment. But through my newsletter, through my coaching, psychology degree, conversations with friends and family, I've come to realize that I'm not that person in the same way, nor am I in that exact same moment. You can't step into the same river twice because your foot's not the same. That water's not the same. There's an element of change, growth, degradation, and hopefully renewal out of all of this. What I've come to understand through experience, through reading, that there are 5 elements of fitness that over the past year in particular, but over the past 10 years, I've really been working on, and some more successfully than others. So physical fitness. In 2023, I got into the most aesthetic shape of my life. I actually set strength goals as well. So aesthetically and athletically, the best that I'd been up until that point. And this year, I've managed to run my first half marathon. Completely different to the weights, and actually trying to do some of the weights that I was doing 2 years ago, that strength isn't there anymore. It's a different level of fitness. There's no way that 2023 me could have done what 2025 me did in Birmingham. Yeah, I ran a respectable time. I can hang with my running mates. That's class. My running mates couldn't have hung with me in the gym. So there was definitely a feeling of achievement, but also difference, and accepting that, and that being exciting. The mental fitness. So recognizing that I had massive depression And instead of jumping on SSRIs, understanding maybe through other people that it resulted in weight gain, it resulted in a negative impact on your physical fitness and potentially didn't improve your mental health. That's a controversial topic and I would need citations, of course I would, but the idea that exercise and routine and structure and diet could have a bigger effect on my mental health and my physical health than just taking pills could was something that I wanted to investigate. And through consistency in study and learning how to cook, I became physically fitter and mentally fitter. Spiritual fitness, becoming mindful, recognizing thoughts as transitory, as able to pass. This is something that I'm still working on. And I've been in a couple of relationships now with people who are anxious. You know, they're predisposed to anxiety in a way that I've never really experienced. And I think recognizing their anxiety and maybe then becoming anxious in a way that I hadn't before with relationships has impacted my understanding of the world. But when I'm conscious of it, has added to my experience, and I understand maybe better how to manage anxiety in other people, which is helpful for my coaching, but also helpful for my interpersonal relationships. And then also recognizing when I'm anxious. Studying former strength and conditioning, level 4 qualification, recognizing that anxiety is actually a helpful performance enhancer up to a point, then also reframe my understanding of it. So we have physical, mental, spiritual fitness going on here, and recognizing through moments of mindfulness and gratitude that even if we can't explain everything or we don't give everything up to a god or a class of deities, there is something to be felt in our experiences, even if we can't mentally understand it or physically engage with it. And this contributes to fitness as well. Social fitness is a big one, and tied up with me being massively depressed. It wasn't until I went back to uni and worked on my physical and mental fitness and recognised when thoughts were dictating my feelings, that I recognised my inability to make friends and my inability to sustain relationships, and was then able to work on them. And going away travelling, I was able to meet a lot of people, but as I say, I wasn't necessarily able to make friends that would last. You know, there's one guy called Journos, who's great, who I met in Malaysia, who I text for 2 months after hanging out with him for a couple of days. But ultimately, my travel mates haven't stuck in the same way that my friends made at uni have, or my college mates like Ollie have. So we have 4 elements of fitness there. The 5th, as I understand it, is wealth. And being financially secure, giving up your time for the money, for the security, for the pension, knowing that things are covered for as long as you breathe, hopefully, is definitely a factor of fitness. And maybe it's the bit that I don't have at the moment. You know, I'm not earning what I was earning on my salaried job. I'm earning enough to get through and to have great experiences like we did this weekend. But ultimately, I've given a lot of this up, the security, the wealth, fitness up, in order to better understand the other 4 pillars. Is that sustainable? No, it's not. I am going to have to make moves, make changes somewhere along the line. And potentially this is one of them. Fitness and thinking then. That's what I'm wanting to move forwards with. Coaching is huge, and hopefully it remains a part of my life professionally and personally. But the ability to communicate ideas, whether they're my own or they're out in the world, and how they apply to all of us, is something that I definitely want to pursue. And to write it as I have in my Friday newsletter, or to speak it as I am now. I would love this to be part of, if not all of, the next chapter. But it's only going to come through sets and reps. Practice, failing, understanding what you want to hear, what you want to learn about, what I could do better, what actually isn't worth any of our times. It's exciting in a way that isn't anxiety inducing. I don't know what this summer looks like. As I wrote in the newsletter, this summer could be anything and so could you. I want to share that with you, and I want to grow this with you, and I want to grow as I'm doing it with you. In terms of what the structure of the podcast would look like, I think there's going to be an element of this, of conversation, of discussion. There's no script here. I have an idea of what I want to talk about for right now, but going forwards it could be anything. I want to bring other people into chat as well, and I was hoping to take you through some of the writing that Beth and I did over the weekend. It's just been published on The Independent, which is Beth's zine, and I'll link you to it. We wrote 3,000 words on the festival. We landed around midnight on Wednesday, stayed close to the airport, and then on Thursday morning migrated into Barcelona city centre, rocked up at our new hotel, checked out the pool upstairs. I did a little bit of work, Beth explored for a little bit, and then we went into the festival proper. Now, Beth is a seasoned journalist and she's got more and more bylines to her name. And to have the opportunity to see somebody with the accreditations, with the qualifications, do what they do is amazing. But I think also something that I've learned is that if you go into something with excitement and with intensity and a willingness to learn, then you don't need to be dead weight. I've got an English literature degree. I'm not a slouch. I've written poems and published stuff. I'm not lagging completely. But it's always nice to have somebody to look up to. And over the course of 3 hot evenings, sun setting gradually, but still 28, 27, 26 degrees going into 11 in the evening, we saw some of the biggest bands in music. What was amazing about the festival as a whole was how female-led it was. And it's not until you are in the crowd, maybe 2 or 3 acts in, that you go, Saturday was all female. Time Sisters were huge on Saturday night, and the way that they all interplayed and took over roles was amazing. They had their idiosyncratic drumming moments, everybody pitching in. But then the lead guitarist, Danielle, blew my mind, basically, with her ability to sing, drum and shred. There's Danielle Haim and there was the lead guitarist for Chappell Roan. Just out and out pedigree, bona fide axesmiths. They were unreal. It's just next level stagecraft in a way that maybe Fontaine's didn't deliver, in a way that Charli definitely didn't deliver. I'm not the biggest Haim fan, but over the course of the festival, they were easily one of the best acts. We've got then Sabrina, I think, to talk about, whose set was unlike Beach House just before her, completely maximal. And she absolutely delivered. Her set was like an American 50s film studio with different platforms and roaming cameras. There was a dance competition halfway through. There was a newscast, there was infomercials with lyrics from the songs coming up. It was a lot of fun. And she was consummate in her performance. Dolly Parton for this generation, and absolutely, I think, the star of the festival as a whole. With Chappell Roan on Saturday night, I was blown away as well. Now, Chappell Roan openly hates men, and I think you can take that personally. She would probably want you to take that personally. But the fun from her tracks, I think she deliberately paints herself as the pantomime villain. If Sabrina Carpenter's the pop princess, not that she would call herself that, but the crowd certainly called her a beautiful queen. Then Roan, based on how the media engages with her and treats her, because of how she seems to treat her fans and talk about men, is the villain. She's a self-stylized villain. If you ever played Final Fantasy VI, not dissimilar to Kefka, the psychotic clown who destroys the world. That's what her outfit reminded me of. I wonder if she's played Final Fantasy VI, and if she has, well, actually, we've got more in common than she might realise. The performance was amazing. And again, I was surprised by the number of hits and the way that her band actually played. It's frustrating to constantly go back to Charli XCX. She didn't have a band on stage. She relied on a backing track. There were dancers, but I'm not sure if she was supposed to dance with them or not, because they would start on her songs, but then disappear after a minute. And I wonder if it was because she was too drunk to engage with them. Troy, to give him credit, did dance with his dancers, but their performance just wasn't. It was showing up for a check, talking how drunk they were on stage when people had travelled to see them. Chappell, it just wasn't the case. Everybody on stage contributed in some way. The vocals were amazing. Drumming was unreal. The guitar playing, like I say, lead for Chappell Roan, some of the best guitar playing I've ever seen. I was excited to be there and to be a part of it and to have a different perspective than I'm used to from music. Men talk about relationships and talk about women in relationships all the time in pop music. Men don't typically listen to women complaining about men in music. That doesn't happen. So to have Sabrina do it, to have Chappell do it, was good, necessary. The festival ended with LCD Soundsystem. Hearing Tribulations played live. That rolling synth, oh man, spiky solo through the middle, all the synths, all of the drums, all of the sound that I wanted, that we didn't get from Idols because for some reason the bass just didn't seem to be turned on for them. The subwoofers, the woofers, whatever dogs needed to be present just weren't, sadly, for 3/4 of the set. Were present for LCD Soundsystem from the start. The octet, all super tight, all contributing layers, depth, texture to the noise. Yeah, me, Beth and all of the dads, so many dads seem to show up for the last band, were properly enthralled by them. It was a great way to close the festival, I think, for most people. If you'd had pharmaceutical assistance through the evening, you were probably still going, but we needed to get out of there and get back to the hotel before catching a flight to go through to Palma. And to have the opportunity to write and review them from legitimate press passes was amazing. And I want to be doing more of that. I want to be communicating more of that. I want to be writing more of it. Like I say, we put 3,000 words together and it wasn't a chore to do it. All right, we were up till 5 to midnight doing it. But yeah, I would love to do that alongside the scripts that I'm writing for Coach Jackman's social media. I'll drop the links, you check them out. Who Jackman is the original social media presence for the poetry, for the performance. I do want to bring more of that in. Let me know what you'd like to hear or see next. Maybe tell me who you want me to chat to. It's going to be fairly easy, I think, for me to bring people on in Sheffield, but if we need to have a Zoom call, if we need to put it further afield, I'd love to do that too. Much love. I'll see you in the next one.